Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the reading of the fic entitled Innocent Until Proven Guilty. Here's the summary. Aizawa Shouta just wanted some coffee, and instead stumbles upon his Hellspawn class discussing the possibility of his problem child being the traitor. Aizawa knows that's not the case, despite the red flags he has seen from the boy. He still could never be the traitor. However, the only way to convince some of the students may be through an interrogation anyways. Now to go about this in the least traumatizing way possible. Cue Nezu and his chaos. This fic currently has 12 chapters and is just over 30,000 words and ongoing. Here's Chapter 1. Chapter 1. Defamation and Slander. Aizawa Shouta was exhausted. Typical, really. It was just after 7:30 p.m. on a Friday, and while normally this would be about the time Shouta wakes up from a nap to get ready for patrol, he had been blessed with the night off. He should have known it wouldn't last. Currently, Shouta was headed to Nezu's office, one of the many banes of his existence, for an emergency meeting he himself had requested. He already hates himself for calling this meeting, but unfortunately, it was necessary. Walking, Shouta notes the sun setting through the windows as he passes through the UA corridors. He much prefers the campus at times like this. No students, no noise, just peace and quiet. It's a rarity in a place like this, yet Shouta has been unable to find it in himself to enjoy it. His mind had been preoccupied with why he had to call this meeting in the first place. Naturally, it was due to one of the other banes of his existence, despite the fact that they've wormed their way into Shota's heart. Not that he would ever admit it. His Class 1A. Earlier this evening, he had been headed to the common room kitchen in Heights Alliance for some coffee, since the coffee maker in Shouta and Hisashi's apartment upstairs had broken earlier in the week. It had been a nightmare, to be completely honest. Hisashi, bless him, had thought that this would slow down Shota's coffee intake until they could get it fixed over the weekend. His husband really should give Shouta more credit than that, as if he would sacrifice his caffeine intake over a mere inconvenience. Needless to say, Shouta needed another source for coffee, and the common room kitchen in 1A's Heights Alliance just so happened to have a coffee maker. This led to Shouta, over the course of the past week, using this coffee maker. All things considered, he was lucky he only had to go downstairs. Now, the obvious downside to this, Shouta had been forced to spend extra unnecessary time around his Hellspawn. Most of the week had been fine. Shouta merely ran interference when Bakugo exploded his classmates, scolded Kaminari for overusing his quirk, charging his classmates' phones of all things, and was forced to listen to the general teenage drama his overexcitable class was spouting daily. Truly, it was manageable, much better than he had expected. He was able to almost always brew the coffee in peace and escape quickly back upstairs. It was fine. Until an hour ago, at least. Most of the students had been gathered in the common room talking, but instead of the words being accompanied by loud laughter and teasing, they were quietly spoken. Conspiratorial, almost. Interesting. Only one student went home for the weekend. Midoriya, his #1 problem child. Midoriya's mother had requested he come home. After the events at Kamina Ward and the training camp, no one could blame her. All Might had decided to accompany him home to make sure he made it safely, despite all of Midoriya's efforts to insist he was fine. That insistence is just another red flag Shouta collected of the piling concerns regarding one Midoriya Izuku since the start of the year. However, once again, it's pushed aside, due to his lack of anything substantial to discuss with the boy. Shouta, in all his allergic to emotions glory, had tried on numerous occasions to get the boy to open up to him, with no success as of yet. As Shouta made his way to the kitchen to start a pot, none of the students noticed his presence or acknowledged him. Naturally, taking advantage of this, he chose to be a fly on the wall and listen in. Sue him. His curiosity was a bit piqued by the demeanor change in his students. There were a few noticeable observations made as he surveyed the room from his spot in the kitchen. For starters, Bakugo was in a corner alone, sulking. His fists were clenched, and he was staring out the window, scowling. Todoroki appeared to have frosted over his half of the couch, while Ida and Uraraka had seemingly moved to the opposite side as far away as possible. Todoroki, while usually capable of maintaining a stoic and unreadable facade, had sheer cold, unforgiving rage in his eyes as he sat still on the couch. The rest of the class were a mix of shocked expressions, sadness, and fear. What the hell? I just don't know, guys. I'm sorry, this is all a lot, and it sounds crazy, Kirishima muttered, with none of his usual enthusiasm. No, what's crazy is that he has notebooks filled with things on each of us, Ashido hissed out, throwing her arms up for emphasis. How are you not freaked out here? Perhaps we should ask him about them, Kero, Asui croaked out quietly. Shouta had to strain to hear her at all. He hadn't noticed it before, but on the table between the students were a large number of notebooks. Some were opened, others closed, all strikingly familiar for some reason, and Shouta made the simple connection that these were what the Hellspawn were concerned about, for whatever reason. He chose to keep listening, rather than intervene. He still didn't have enough information quite yet. No hero would write what he wrote in these, Kaminari said, unrepentant despite the quiet tone. I'm sorry, guys, but it's him. He's definitely the traitor. There's nothing that could explain this, he continued, gesturing to the notebooks on the table. What? To say Shouta was confused was an understatement. While trying to dissect who the students could be talking about, he sees the atmosphere change in the room. A flurry of nods arise from the rest of the Baku squad, along with a handful of dejected faces from nearly the rest of the room. Bitter acceptance, he realizes. He needs to figure out what's going on here, now. Abruptly, Todoroki stands, eyes somehow holding even more rage than before. Izuku would never do anything to anyone out of malice or ill will. He has done nothing but put his life on the line for all of you. Does that all mean nothing now? He grits out, tone icy, shifting to look at each of them. But what Shouta is stuck on is one thing. Midoriya. Why the hell would any of these kids think that problem child of all people could be a traitor? It's so unfathomable and absurd to Shouta that he almost laughs. He sobers quickly, though, at the realization that these kids are deadly serious about this. Ida is the next to speak. I am saddened by this news too, Todoroki, but we must look at the facts. He could easily be providing our weaknesses to the League of Villains, Ida states matter of fact. The only difference to his usual demeanor is the lack of any arm motions to accompany his words. Even if he is not, we still can all agree that these notebooks are not the actions of a hero at all. We need to inform the teachers. Bold of you to speak on what's heroic and what's not, Ida. Todoroki growls out. By the way that Ida flinches at the words, that was a dig about Hosu. Todoroki isn't done, though. I pity all of you, thinking that someone as kind and selfless as Izuku could ever be a traitor. He rounds on Uraraka next. Tell me, Uraraka, you got these from his room tonight, without his knowledge. What was your plan here? To scare everyone into fearing him? Shouta needs to stop this right now. But before he can, Uraraka speaks. I trusted Deku too, Todoroki, but no one good has that many ways to kill me, his supposed friend, written down. They wouldn't think that way to begin with, she exclaims, tears forming in her eyes. Rather than hearing her explanation, though, Todoroki had already turned and started to walk off toward the elevators. Shouta moves from the kitchen to put a stop to this conversation before it can spiral any further. He is stopped, though, mid-step, by the sound of sudden, quiet laughter breaking the silence of Todoroki's departure. It's Bakugo, not turned at all from where he is still facing the window. The chuckle he lets out is low and mirthful, yet filled with an undertone of disbelief. What's so funny, bro? Kirishima questions, worry evident in his voice. Yeah, man, Midoriya is dangerous. You might not like it, but it's the truth. Sero speaks up, for the first time. Bakugo doesn't answer, simply stands and walks to the elevators, following Todoroki's previous path. As he passes the kitchen, he spots Shouta. You better fix this shit, he growls out low enough that only Shouta could hear. Before he can even make to respond, Bakugo turns away and leaves without another word. Quiet murmuring can be heard amongst the rest of the class still gathered, and Shouta takes a moment to process before heading over to them. That's enough, Shouta growls out, quirk activating on instinct. The class had silenced immediately. He walks to the table in the center of the students and carefully collects each of the scattered notebooks. As he picks them up, he counts and finds there are 19 of them here. Damn, the problem child really enjoyed his hobby. After gathering all the notebooks, Shouta glares at the students. I overheard your conversation just now. Based on what I heard, it sounds like you all have decided that one of your own classmates is a traitor, because of these. Shouta lifts the notebooks for emphasis. These are not evidence of anyone being a traitor, Shouta explains as he flips through the pages, which, now that he's looking at them, are really quite impressive from what he can tell. The class all look like they are about to argue, but he goes on without giving them the chance. Uraraka, did you go into another classmate's room without permission and take his belongings? He questions. The girl's eyes are downcast as she nods, and Shouta continues. You will be writing a 3,000-word essay on the importance of private property laws. You'll have plenty of time to work on it during your week of detention with me. In addition, you will also be writing an apology letter to Midoriya. Just because he isn't here to see what you have done doesn't mean he won't be informed come Monday. Am I understood? But Sensei, Ashido shouts, Midoriya is the traitor. He doesn't deserve an apology for this. We had a right to know, and we all know it's true. Quiet agreements ring out amongst the other students, none willing to recognize that Midoriya isn't the traitor. Shouta sighs and turns towards the door, making to leave the class with parting words as he steels himself to contact the rat for a damn emergency meeting. You have no solid proof that Midoriya is a traitor, yet you're choosing to believe it anyway. Regardless of whether anyone is or isn't a traitor, that is not for you to be concerning yourselves with. It is our responsibility as your teachers to handle things like this, not you. I understand you're concerned, but I will handle this. No more discussing this with each other. Instead, come to me if you have questions. And with that, Shouta leaves his class and pulls his phone out to text Nezu. Need a meeting with you this evening if possible. It's urgent. I'm available in my office now. Why am I not surprised? I'm on my way. See you soon, Shouta-kun. Putting his phone back away, Shouta started the trek back to the school. A sudden thought occurs to him, and he sighs. He never got his fucking coffee. All right, listeners, this concludes the first chapter of Innocent Until Proven Guilty. This is a suspected traitor AU type of fic, where Izuku, of course, his notebooks are discovered. I've always really enjoyed fics like this. This is actually one I myself am writing, so I'm hoping that by posting this and starting to podfic the fic, even though it's only at 12 chapters right now, that it'll give me the motivation to get back to writing it. So please keep that in mind while listening, that this is an unfinished work, that I'm still working on it. But I do have 12 chapters done, so I'm hoping to keep going with it, have some inspiration for things to continue writing, how I want the story to unfold. I've really enjoyed writing this one. I think it's really fun. I always like the kind of angst that comes out of these fics, where you see characterizations change, you see certain things. Like, I love when Bakugo, right, stands up for or doesn't fall in with some of the other rhetoric, because he's known him his whole life, right? So he knows that Izuku isn't that type of person. And people like Todoroki, whose life has been saved and, inspired by Izuku, refusing to turn on his own classmate and friend. Whereas you might see some other perspective changes, right? And the contrast to that, where someone like Ida, as Todoroki called out, has instances like Hosu, where Izuku was there and defended and supported and helped him through that, and then to go and turn on your own friend because of a misconception or an idea that comes from these notebooks. So I really like this. I'm hoping that you all enjoy it as well. Please give me your honest feedback. I'm really curious to hear what you all think. The fic is located on AO3 if you wanted to read ahead, but I would just reemphasize that the fic is unfinished, so you're welcome to go slide over and read ahead if you'd like to, but just keeping that in the back of your mind. Chapter 2 will be up next, and as always, thank you all so much for listening.